For generations, we've kind of been told economics is all about scarcity, right?
Yeah.
Limited resources, unlimited want. It's like Econ 101.
hmm
But what if that's not really the main story anymore? What if our biggest challenge isn't scarcity, but something else entirely?
Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. We're
Yeah.
looking at some really fascinating ideas from Michael Williams, a historian.
Okay.
And he basically flips that whole scarcity idea right over. He argues that once a society can produce, more than it actually needs just to survive what he calls a surplus,
Right.
then the whole game changes.
The
Fundamentally.
game changes. So our mission here, for you listening, is to explore how this shift, this move from scarcity thinking to surplus reality, how it changes, well, almost everything.
Exactly. From how stuff gets made
Yeah.
to why inequality sticks around,
Yeah.
even when it seems like there's enough stuff for everyone.
We're going to try and peel back the layers on how the economy actually works when abundance, not scarcity, is the backdrop. So let's start with that traditional view. Modern economics, it claims to be about solving the problem of scarce resources. That's the textbook version we all get.
That's the standard line, yeah.
Yeah.
But Williams argues, pretty compellingly, I think, that our real challenge, maybe our greatest one, is managing abundance effectively.
Managing abundance.
Yeah. Once you hit that surplus point, producing more than you strictly need to survive, the questions totally shift. It stops being just, how do we divide up the limited pie?
Right.
And it becomes, how do we deal with inequality when there is enough? How do you keep people motivated? How do you maintain sort of consent when basic needs could theoretically be met?
That's a massive shift in perspective. Okay, so if we're actually dealing with abundance, how does that problem first show up? What are the immediate consequences?
Well, according to Williams, surplus creates two core problems right off the bat. First, that extra stuff, the surplus, it only really becomes meaningful if you can exchange it. If you grow way more food than you can eat, it's just rotting food unless you trade it. It has no inherent value until it moves, until it's exchanged.
So value comes from the trade, not just the thing itself.
Precisely. And second, and this is really key, if people have to get what they need to survive through this exchange system,
Okay.
then it becomes much more profitable to make things that people can consume, like indefinitely, or things that wear out fast, or that constantly need upgrading, rather than making things that are genuinely needed and last a long time.
And that's where the article says capitalism comes from, this tension.
Yes.
It's not a system solving scarcity,
Yeah.
but one built on perpetual surplus, needing waste and novelty and things breaking down just to keep going.
Exactly. It keeps the exchange engine running.
So the value isn't really in having the thing, it's in the churn, getting rid of it for the next new thing.
Yeah. That's the core idea. This constant need to dispose and replace, that becomes the economic engine, more so than just making something useful.
Wow.
And what's really interesting is who gets the power. Williams argues it's those who control the exchange, the trading, the markets, the flow.
Not necessarily the people actually making this stuff.
Not necessarily. Wealth in this kind of system isn't just produced like in a factory. It's kind of exchanged into existence.
Okay, this leads to what Williams calls the production paradox, right? If a product, just by being used, destroys its own demand, that turns the whole idea of production on its head.
It really does. It's a paradox because successful production, making something really good, really durable, that perfectly meets a need, actually undermines the need to make more of it later.
Right. You kill your own future market.
Exactly. So to stop the whole system from grinding to a halt, these surplus economies have to find ways to constantly generate new demand.
How do they do that?
By favoring things that don't last. Short-lived goods, perishable things, or stuff driven by status and trends. Think about it. If you make a light bulb that lasts forever, well, you only sell one.
Huh, right. Bad business in this model.
Bad business in a surplus exchange model. Yeah. This affects, our wallets, our environment, everything.
So the pattern of what gets produced becomes almost arbitrary. It's not driven by real human need, but just by whether a product can keep renewing its own demand cycle.
Pretty much. Durability, stability, and consumption. Those things are actually penalized.
Penalized, wow.
Yeah, because they slow down the exchange engine. Goods need to be consumed, replaced quickly.
It makes you think about, well, planned obsolescence isn't some conspiracy theory. It's almost baked into the logic of the system, like my phone feeling outdated after 2 years.
It feels necessary, doesn't it? But yeah, Williams would say that's the system working exactly as intended. It's a pervasive logic. The speed and the volume of exchange, That's what determines survival for a product or even an industry.
Yeah.
So entire sectors, fast fashion, consumer electronics,
Right.
they are fundamentally structured to create these rapid cycles of demand, not necessarily to meet long-term needs.
And it seems so organic, but Williams argues it's quite deliberate, even if it's not centrally planned.
Right, it's an emergent property of the system's rules.
So if industries are set up to churn demand, not meet needs, it feels like we're creating scarcity on purpose, even with all this abundance. Is that connected to the poverty imperative idea?
It is, yeah.
That sounds like such a contradiction. How can poverty be an imperative if there's plenty?
It's a striking term. What he means by poverty imperative is this tendency, almost like an evolutionary drift within these economies
Okay.
for essential goods, the things people genuinely need, to end up remaining scarce or undervalued.
Undervalued, okay.
It's not usually some mustache-twirling villain planning it. It's more the natural outcome of market incentives when you already have inequality. Value just flows towards what's rare, what's desirable, what's profitable to exchange rapidly.
Not necessarily what's like fundamentally necessary for life.
Exactly. Not what's necessary for well-being.
Can you give us a really concrete example, something, we might see every day?
Housing is a really stark one. Think about major cities.
Okay.
You see massive investment pouring into high-yield stuff, luxury condos, short-term rentals like Airbnb, properties bought just as investments.
Right, lots of cranes building fancy towers.
Exactly. Meanwhile, truly affordable housing, basic shelter for working people, often remains incredibly scarce.
Yeah.
And Williams argues this isn't some policy failure, necessarily, but the market doing what it's incentivized to do in a situation of surplus and inequality
It's the rational actors making rational choices.
that collectively lead to this irrational outcome, where basic needs aren't met despite the capacity to meet them. It's kind of ironic, isn't it?
Deeply ironic. And this ensures wealth stays concentrated.
It tends to, yeah. Concentrated with what he might call the exchanging class, those profiting from the trade, the churn, rather than just making essential things.
And this ties into revaluation.
Yes, that's part of it. The system assigns higher value to things that absorb surplus quickly through exchange.
Like fast fashion, disposable tech.
Exactly. Luxury services, too. Whereas things like care work, basic food production, maintaining infrastructure, they get systematically undervalued.
Why? Because they don't absorb surplus fast enough.
They don't churn through the exchange system as rapidly or profitably. You don't typically trade up your essential care worker every year.
Yeah. That's unsettling. Okay, so if we actually do have so much abundance, why do we all still feel this relentless pressure to work more, produce more, buy more? It feels constant. The article mentioned surplus can threaten motivation.
It absolutely can.
Yep.
I mean, if basic needs could be met relatively easily, why the endless hustle?
Yeah.
So for the system to keep functioning, that surplus has to be consumed endlessly.
So we need to be convinced to want things we don't strictly need?
Precisely. Consumption gets heavily reinforced, culturally, psychologically, advertising, trends. It all works to make often arbitrary goods seem incredibly desirable, even necessary.
So the answer to the motivation problem is basically hide the abundance, maintain the illusion of scarcity.
That's a big part of Williams's argument. We're constantly told work is necessary, the grind is essential, because access to the basics is kept limited, even artificially so, through this system.
And wealth itself changes meaning again. It's not just what you own.
No, it's what you can exchange and how quickly. The faster something can be traded, flipped, retraded, the more value it generates within this specific system.
Like NFTs or certain financial products, maybe.
Those could be seen as extreme examples, yeah. Things valued almost purely for their exchange potential.
But this constant focus on exchange, on denying the abundance, does it have deeper consequences?
Williams argues it does. Because recognizing the surplus, the abundance, it opens up really profound questions, questions of choice.
Choice?
Yeah. If we don't have to be locked into this endless cycle just to survive, well, then we could choose. Choose what to produce, choose who gets it, choose why we're doing things.
And that's threatening.
It's deeply threatening to systems built on perceived necessity and hierarchy. If people realize there's enough and we could organize things differently, the legitimacy of the existing power structures, the inequality, it all comes into question.
So the whole structure kind of depends on stopping us from even asking those big questions.
According to Williams, yes. Keeping those questions off the table is crucial for maintaining the status quo. It becomes potentially a crisis of meaning.
Wow. That's a lot to take in. So boiling it down, what's the ultimate takeaway here? What's the big picture Williams is painting?
I think the fundamental contradiction he exposes is that our current form of capitalism thrives not on scarcity, but on abundance, and crucially, on the necessity of denying that abundance.
Denying it.
Yeah. The production paradox, the poverty imperative, the way things are valued. He sees these not as flaws or bugs in the system,
but as features.
Exactly. As the very mechanisms that manage abundance by making it invisible, by making sure it doesn't lead to democratic redistribution or fundamental change.
And he points to that other path, the path not taken.
Right. The path where we would actually acknowledge the surplus, share it, eliminate the artificially maintained scarcity and inequality, plan production rationally based on need.
Which, he says, remains politically unthinkable for many. Too radical.
It challenges fundamental assumptions.
Yeah.
But his final insight is really powerful. He basically says, look, the economic problem, the production problem, we've kind of solved it. We can produce enough to meet everyone's material needs.
We have the capacity.
We have the capacity. So the challenge that remains isn't really economic anymore. It's political.
Yeah.
And maybe even psychological.
The challenge of actually embracing the freedom that our own productivity, our own surplus makes possible.
Exactly that.
Wow. This deep dive, it really forces you to rethink some core assumptions about our economy, doesn't it?
It really does.
Instead of this constant battle against scarcity, maybe we're really grappling with how we manage, distribute, and even perceive abundance itself.
And it leaves you with a pretty provocative thought, doesn't it? If Michael Williams is right, if the material needs of everyone could genuinely be met, what then? What kind of society could we actually build? Think about it. What would it mean for your own life, for everyone's lives, if the main driver shifted away from just endless exchange and manufactured scarcity towards actually meeting needs and embracing the real choices that genuine abundance could offer us? What would that world even look like?